Before we get into video, I want to tell you about how I got into video. If you recognize the building behind me as the famous Rietveld Schroeder House, maybe you too wanted to be an architect growing up. As a kid, all I wanted to do was make things. So naturally, I went to architecture school. But I didn't really last long because I had a really difficult second or third assignment with no clear goal and no constraints. I went to my professor and I asked for help. And I'm super analytical, really analytical person. And his advice to me was just play with it. So this did not compute with me at all. And I quickly dropped out. And soon after, someone gave me the book, Why We Buy by Paco Underhill. And Paco is an anthropologist who took observational research and applied it to store design. This to me sounded a lot more fun than just playing with it. So I went to work for him. I started my research career at his company, and I loved all things about research except one thing. I had this feeling that researchers don't get to make things. Designers make. They're the ones who are actually pushing the pixels. Whereas a researcher, I felt like I was on the sideline, stuck, just giving comments and suggestions. And as a maker, this really bummed me out. But a few years later, about 2012, this all changed when a new free tool came out. It was a data visualization tool called D3. And it was a small JavaScript library. If you could teach yourself a little bit of coding, you could create any data viz you could dream up. All of the crazy scatter plots and election needles and bubble charts that you see on New York Times were thanks to D3. This made me think of being a researcher and visualizing data not as selecting one of 8 chart types, but instead as a maker. And I honestly use it as an excuse to just have fun and make reports interactive that I personally wanted to interact with and to watch. And interestingly, even though this was all an excuse, I find the more fun that I had making artifacts, the more other people and my stakeholders actually wanted to engage with them. So what about video though? Because the talk will be all about video. Back then, I did not feel the same about video as I did about data visualization. If you were doing research like me when I started in 2008, this was how you recorded video. With a Sony Handycam, SD cards had just come out the year before. It was a huge pain to load it into your laptop. You would take out the audio, send it to a human transcriber who would charge you $2 a minute, and it would take 3 days up to a week. You get back a transcript with a timestamp, probably every 15 seconds, a little bit more if you paid more. And to find a clip that you wanted, you'd look in the transcript, you'd find the time, then you'd open your iMovie, and you'd search around this audiogram looking for the time. It was painful. I did not like video at all. But about 5 years ago, that all changed. Today, it's totally different. Pretty much every single professional conversation you have if you work remotely, there is a record button. And behind that record button, there is AI transcription that costs pennies per minute, and it's instantaneous. But what I think the biggest change in video is, and the thing that I've been super excited about, is text-based video editors. So instead of looking through that audiogram, now you can edit interview footage like you edit a Word doc. And the first time I used one, probably 5 or 6 years ago, I was blown away. It felt just like the first time I was using D3 and got me really interested in thinking about video editing as a researcher. And I also, as I was getting better and better, same thing with the data viz. I would do fun things that I wanted to watch, and my stakeholder wanted to watch them too. And through this, I've learned that I think we all as researchers can be a lot more impactful the better we get at video. Video is really powerful. We watch it for fun. Video is also unique to research. Data science has data, product managers can pull tweets, but researchers, we have video. Yet I don't think we've learned as a discipline to see video to its full potential. So to set the stage, I want to illustrate to you what something I've been guilty of, the typical research video. Imagine I'm a researcher presenting to you all as designers or product managers. I get to the slide, there's a little video on it. I click play, it slowly starts. You have no clue what's happening. You have no context, there's no stories. You're looking at heads of people who you know nothing about. One of them is in a little tiny window up there. One of them goes off on a tangent for an entire minute about something else. One of them, the audio is too low. One of them is kind of engaging, but then halfway through, you see someone, for a split second, wondering who is that? It's probably the vendor's moderator who you've never seen before. And you start to disengage. And I can feel that. So I hover over the progress bar, hoping it's close to being done. And it's not. And we can all see it. And we feel collectively that pain of the slow moving progress bar. And I'm like, I've got to bail and end our misery. But when I try to bail, Google Slides does what it always does when you click next. It replays the video from the top again. So let's leave this shameful place and fast forward to what I'd like to tell you about today, great research videos. At its simplest, I think a great research video is that's something you would want to watch if you didn't make it. When Nazir asked about the report that you spent 40 hours on that 2 people watched, I raised my hand twice. I've done that so often, and I've only now kind of realized our audience is not a jury. It's not a crime to not pay attention to our findings. And only if you would want to look at and read the stuff that you come out with, should you expect other people to as well. So great research video is engaging. People want to engage with it. It's really persuasive. Some of the best videos I've seen, maybe not single-handedly have changed a product or a product direction, but they've encompassed that new strategy and really memorable. I'm sure we've all remembered a video we've seen 5, 10 years ago that has stuck with it. So let's learn to make one with a few quick tips. A quick warning before, this is not about analysis at all. This is about you have an insight and you want to illustrate it in a really engaging, memorable, and persuasive way. So I'll share with you some tips that I've learned, starting with the capturing, how to find the best stuff, how to make a rough cut, and how to polish it before you share it. So first, let's go into capture everything. Why? This should seem simple. The more you capture, the more that you have to edit. And this means that if you're going out in the field to shoot something, shoot more than the interviewer. If you have a note taker with you, have them become your camera person. Shoot the setting. If the participant is talking about or showing you their device or some artifact, take a close-up of that. If you're over Zoom, screen share a lot. And this can create B-roll that you can use to make your videos much more visually engaging. Also, start with the end in mind. As we always do with surveys, when we're writing our survey, we're envisioning the analysis. I want to break out this satisfaction rating by this demographic, so I'm going to ask this demographic question. Same thing with video. When planning an interview, envision the edit. I think the video that I've been most proud of was the one that when I started the research, I knew the output was going to be a video. So we created specific prompts in the discussion guide to get a consistent soundbite of how we wanted our participants to interview them or to introduce themselves in the video. We also added common questions that could be make for a really great montage. Just like Guy Raz in his podcast always asks the exact same question to all of his interviewees. So that's capture everything. Hopefully you've got a ton of great footage. How do you find the best stuff fast? So within the tons of great footage, I've found probably 98% of the stuff that I've captured, I don't think anyone else cares about or cares to see. How do you kind of cut that down quickly? I like to think about a documentary editor. One of my favorite documentaries recently is Free Solo, which I'm sure many of you have seen, about rock climber Alex Honnold. They shot 700 hours of footage for that movie, and they winnowed it down to the 90-minute film that it was. They cut 99% of what they shot, and it took them a year and a half to do it. So I like to apply a similar mindset as a researcher. Typical project, maybe you have 10 hours of footage, and I bet at most you maybe have 12 minutes of good clips. So you probably cut 98%, and I imagine you don't have a year and a half, probably maybe 2 days if you're lucky, maybe a week. So you need to find that 2% really fast. What I do is throw all the footage into the text-based video editors that I mentioned. And for those of you that aren't familiar, they come in 3 flavors. First, there are these research tools that have a video editor built in, like DScout, Lookback. There are also video editors that are built specifically for research, like Reduct. And then there are also video editors that are built for anyone, a vlogger, a podcaster, like Descript. I think they all have their pluses and minuses. The ones closer to the left are more integrated with your analysis, and they're faster. But as you go to the right, you can do more expressive things, and you have a lot more fine-grained control from the video perspective. So whatever you use, I throw it all in there really quickly. And then in addition to my tags for analysis, I have one tag for video. I called #gold. And this is something that, I don't know what the insight is yet, but wow, this was something that I think people would want to watch. And what exactly am I looking for these gold things? I'm looking for stories. Stories make the best clips. We're hardwired as humans to tell stories, to listen to stories, and to remember them. And what's a story? Really simple. It's someone, a character, doing something, a narrative. They're an element of time. This could be a user deleting their account, a sports fan betting against their favorite sports team to make the loss hurt less. This could be a budding chef like myself scrolling past 50 ads to find the recipe's ingredients. So these are all stories. What's not a story? An opinion. I don't like the ads on websites. That's fine, maybe that's an attitude, but I don't think it makes for a good video clip. Also not a story, the recommendation. Hearing the recommendation from your participant, y'all should put fewer ads on your recipe website. Also does not make a very good clip, not a story. A great story is understandable. It's something simple, it's specific, and it can be a little bit unpredictable. You're curious to watch because you don't know what's gonna happen. And from my time as a researcher, I was thinking back for this talk, what are those favorite videos that I've seen from others or have made myself? And to help you kind of look for the gold, I've identified what I'm calling award-winning research genres. These are the clips that I think make for the best stories and things that you could look for as you're looking for clips. The first, the car crash in slow motion. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this. You're in with the product team, you're watching this long video of everything that you worked on, and the user is just painfully going through it. It doesn't have to be bad, though. Another great genre, the moment of delight. A user chuckling when they read a funny piece of copy, or they sigh of relief when they look at their income statement. There's also the how to do it my way, where you see a participant do something in an unpredictable way. It's not the way that your product was designed, revealing something new. Another one that I've seen really powerful is the competition, where you see something happening from two sides or two different products, almost like a race or an event. You're wondering which one is going to be easier to use, which one is going to be better. Great genres can also be about people. Sometimes you have that incredible participant who's really articulate and tells their viewpoint on the world through kind of a personal narrative or like a Moth Story Slam style. These make for great research clips, or something really tiny. This is what happened this morning. When I just called CS yesterday, this is what happened, like a very specific, small detail. So I think these are things to look for. Also, on the flip side, I've called out the research Razzies, or things that I think do not do well. And some of the award winners have counterparts. The first, the uneventful car ride. This is the video that you try to make to illustrate in the usability test, 5 out of 5 participants completed the task successfully. No one wants to watch that video. It's just, insight is enough. Second, the moment of delight has an evil twin. It's called the quote of delight. No one needs to hear someone just say, that was great, I'd use it, well done. It's fine just in a quote if it's not adding anything as a video because there is no story. Same with the how to do it the right way. If it's obvious, it won't be engaging. This next one is something I used to be a big culprit of. Look how many people I interviewed. This is that montage of those, oh, I gotta show people how rigorous I am. Here's the 6 participants. The next, this comes from the unmoderated session. I call this the voicemail message. This is when you have a participant from a panel who's reading the instructions from user testing in a monotone voice. They clearly don't want to be there, and it's just a pain to watch. And then lastly is just kind of the give up, where you shoot your stakeholder a link to your Google Drive folder with all the interviews completely unedited, expecting them to watch one of them. So these are things that already exist in your footage. You can't force a story. You're not fabricating something, and that's okay. Not every insight needs a story. And I think I've learned this the hard way. I used to think, all right, I've got these 3 great insights. I'm gonna go make a video for each one of them. The first one, boom, fast to find, awesome video. Next one, slower to find, pretty good. Third one, can't find an insight. I spent all day, I Frankenstein something together, and it turns into one of those Razzies. And what I've learned is sometimes it's just okay to have a quote. Or if you're showing survey results, maybe you don't need to hear it in a video if it's just there, and that's fine, and that will save you tons of time. So we found the best stuff fast. Let's make a rough cut. Just like you wouldn't spend the first 10 minutes of a presentation talking about the details of your methodology, in a video, get right into the story. I like to start with a hook. Within the first 5 or 10 seconds, I like my audience to know, 1, I know what's going on, and 2, I'm curious to learn a little bit more. For example, imagine a participant saying, I open up to the app for the first time, and to my surprise, you know exactly what's happening, and you're a little bit curious why this person is surprised. So you've got your hook. How long can you make your clip and keep your audience engaged? I think it depends on 2 things. 1, how good is your content? And 2, how much does your audience care? If you have access to never before seen footage of the Beatles recording their last album in the studio, you can make a documentary for 7.5 hours, and people will watch because they love the Beatles, and they'll listen to podcasts after about it. On the other hand, if you are making a commercial during a football game about fried chicken, you need to make your message, I love that chicken from Popeyes, really short because people don't care. And I've made videos from 8 seconds to share to an entire product team all the way to, I made a 26-minute video for my close team, and we all watched it together. So I really think it depends on the content and the audience. If you need something more tangible, for one clip, I try to aim for 30 seconds or less. I think this is a really good forcing function because I found within a lot of my 2-minute clips, there was actually a really much better 1-minute clip within inside of it. And how to get there? If there's a 2-second unrelated pause, I'll cut it. If the participant goes off on a tangent, I'll cut it. Oftentimes participants say the same things in like 2 or 3 different ways. Cut all of them except for one. You only need one. I think this is easier said than done, as the common writing and editing suggestion, kill your darlings. It's really hard when you've been the interviewer to cut things. If, like me, killing your darlings is too hard, there's a few things that I found help. One, kill a coworker's darling. It is a lot easier to cut someone else's work. I did this 2 weeks ago. I didn't interview the person. I didn't care. It was super fast. Next, save your darlings for later. Last year, I was up all night before this big presentation working on this 2-minute video that I was so excited to kick off this big presentation. I sent it to my research colleague. In the morning, he slapped me back saying, I don't think this really fits. And I was frustrated, and rather than try to force it, I decided, I'm going to save this for later. And sure enough, a few months later, someone on Slack asked about that exact topic, and I had the perfect video for them. So I found this idea of saving stuff for later is a way to, an easy way to tell yourself to keep things. And then lastly, the test screen. If you think it's too long, share it with a coworker over Slack. And you can feel if something's too long when you're sharing with someone. If you feel that progress bar pain, you know it's too long. So you start with the hook. You've got it to an appropriate length. How do you end it? Just like in a slide presentation, you wouldn't end with a thanks slide as kind of a fade out. With a video, don't end in an unengaged way. End with some intention. I like to try to end on an upbeat. Like, what's that final thing that they say that might spark a conversation or might make the product manager who's watching want to respond to it? That's a great way to use videos as a spark. So hopefully with the hook, the length, and the ending, you've made your rough cut. How do you polish it? I think this is the really fun part. You can use narration, you can use visuals in video to do a lot of polish. First, you can orient your audience. In a slide presentation, we use a cover slide to orient our audience on what they're doing. In video, I find orientation being using narration. Oftentimes, if the participant didn't introduce themselves well, I'll just turn on my screen recording and say an intro narration for 3 seconds. Here's George, tired of his cookbooks. He's looking for a new recipe online. It took like 3 seconds, and it gives you all the context of the footage that you're sharing. And you'll find if you share this, guaranteed, no matter what your voice sounds like, everyone will tell you should start a podcast. So once you've oriented, now how do you draw your viewer's attention throughout the video? In slides, we like to use bold to draw attention. How do we do it with video? And I think this is one of the most powerful parts about video. It's called the CSAY principle, and it's pretty much in any video you consume. What it means is what you see as the audience matches what they're saying as the narrator. And this is all over the news. Any news show you've seen with things like The Rundown, whatever the talking head is saying will be perfectly in sync with what you are seeing. He says electricity, electricity pops up. He talks about Serena versus Blair from Gossip Girl, Serena versus Blair pops up. And it is so engaging because you're seeing something and you're hearing it at the exact same time. This is from an SNL skit. They took it to the next level and did an entire word search. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It is hypnotic to just see Chris Christie come up in a word search the same time you hear it. And it's such a powerful mechanism, yet we as researchers don't do it. We will often in a slide presentation, you will see a slide with 200 words and the presenter will say 20 words that are different from those 200 words, causing distraction, the exact opposite of CSAY. In video, we'll do it. You'll see the screen share that has nothing to do with the interviewer, and what they're saying is something completely different. So I think this is something video or presentation is inspiring and to make things more engaging. To take CSAY to the next level, advanced CSAY, viewers must make the connection between what they are seeing and what you're saying. And if you've seen How To with John Wilson on HBO, I not only recommend watching it, but also recommend watching it for CSAY. He is a master at it. It's basically him walking around New York with a camera, and as he's doing things, he is through CSA narrating what he's doing. You see him opening a door, open a door. Walk down the street, I'm walking down the street. But every once in a while, he will do this advanced CSA where the thing you're seeing is not immediately connected to the thing he's saying. You'll see this really goofy invention, and he'll say, problems you didn't even know you had. Like, what's going on? Oh, okay, he's making a statement on this being a really goofy, dumb invention that doesn't even solve a problem. And this is so engaging because you are forced to think and make the connection between the two, and it can be a really powerful way with video. And if you capture that B-roll, like I mentioned in the beginning, this is a great way to use CSA. One thing recently that I've found really effective to use CSA in an ending is, let's imagine I have this clip and I'm the participant. I'm looking for the ingredients, but these ads keep popping up. I'm going back to my cookbooks. I will cut this into 2 clips. And then if I end on this clip, I'll keep the same audio, but for the visual, I will tie the C to what they're saying. So it acts as a punch. So it ends on, I'm going back to my cookbooks. And you see that exact thing. It feels like an ending. It feels like an upbeat. And I found this really effective. So that's the last thing around polishing. Hopefully this was some tips and inspired you to make a more engaging video. I know this is a ton of work and I don't do this for all of my videos. So my final suggestion would be, wait until you have something, some gold footage that you think everyone in your organization should watch and would want to watch. And then spend way more time than you think making that really engaging. And I think that is a great way to get something that people will want to watch and drive impact. Thank you and happy making.